everyone, welcome back to my channel. My name is Magali. I'm an Oracle Apex developer, and in this tutorial I will show you how you can add a button to a classic report. So without further ado, let's go ahead and get started. So this is our use case. We have a classic report. We have a task table with different task names, task statuses, task priority, and due dates. What we're going to be doing in this tutorial is how to add a column with a button on it. So for that, first go ahead and edit our page and take a look at our table first. So we have our ID, task name, task status ID, task priority ID, and due date from the task table. I will leave all the scripts and the application for download in the description for you to follow along with this tutorial if you would like. So this is our table, and the first step we're gonna do is adding a virtual column. So we do right click on columns, create virtual column, and in here we're gonna select the type to be plain text. In here we'll be adding our HTML for our button. I'm gonna do column alignment on layout to center, and under column formatting on the HTML expression we're gonna add the HTML markup for our button. So for that, I'm going to show you by going to Universal Theme. Under Reference, you'll see this option that says Button Builder. If you select that option, then we get to this page. In here, you can customize and create your button as you like. So if I go to Appearance, for example, in this case, I just want an icon. What we'll be doing is allowing the user to click on a button to delete a task from the report. So for that, I'm going to use only the icon, and let's call the button label delete. For the icon class, instead of a circle, I want a band, so maybe do delete. And here, yeah, we can choose the dash trash icon. I want it to be hot, so I'm gonna select that as a yes. Then on template options, we can choose the size to tiny, small, default, large, depending on what you need. I'm gonna leave it as default. And the type, you can select normal, primary, warning, danger, success. Really handy page for you to create your HTML. In this case, I'm gonna choose danger, and for the style, I'll choose simple, just to make it look like the actual button. And then what we're gonna do is copy the entire markup option. So just copy this, and we're going to go back to our HTML expression in the column formatting and paste that. I'm gonna go ahead and break that down so it's easier to read. Alright, so in here we have our button element. We have the type as button, title as delete. This title is the message you get, the little title you get when you hover, when you do mouse over the button in this case. Then we have different classes: the button, no label, icon, that is hot, danger, and simple. And then we have our icon. So now the only thing we're gonna do to this markup will be to add our custom class, which will be our jQuery selector for our dynamic action. We're gonna do cc custom class delete button. And now that we have done that, let's go ahead and click OK and save. Let's do turn off escape special characters. Go ahead and run it. And there you go, you have your column with the different buttons. And as I mentioned before, if you do mouse over the button, then you get to see that title that says delete. Now the next step would be to create a hidden item so that we can store our ID, the row ID. So once we click on it, then we can do our action for deletion. So going back to the page, and we're gonna do in the body create a page item, and then we're going to call it task to delete. This will contain the ID of my row. Select that as hidden. And for this, we're gonna change the session state storage to be per request. Now, you might be wondering, how do we get the ID of the row once I press on this button? For that, we're gonna go back to our virtual column, and under, well, after the class or after area label, we're gonna add the following. We're gonna add the data attribute. So we're gonna do data dash, and I'm gonna call it task ID. If you have seen my previous videos, I explained a bit of how the data attribute works. So this is the name I'm giving it. It's like an identifier for the data that I want to store. So I'm gonna call it task ID, then data dash task dash ID, and then quotes, and then we're gonna make a reference to our ID, to the column that is containing the ID I will want to delete. So ID, this will store inside task ID the data, the information, which ID I'm selecting. So after we adding that, we're gonna click OK. And the next step, we'll go to dynamic actions, and we're gonna do an on-click dynamic action. So in here, we're gonna name it delete task. That's how we're gonna call the entire dynamic action. And for the event, we're gonna select dynamic. For the event, click the selection type. We're gonna select jQuery selector, as we're going to make a reference to this button right here that has the custom class I added, cc-delete-button. So going back to the dynamic action, jQuery dot for your class cc-delete-button. Okay, all right, then the first action we're gonna do is showing a confirmation dialog to make sure that the user wants to delete this task. So this identification name, which is really nice, really like it, we're gonna do confirm delete action. And for the action, we're gonna select confirm under notification. For the title, I'm gonna leave it empty in this example. And for messages, we're gonna do, I'm gonna add a span element, and we're gonna type the following message: are you sure you would like to delete this task? Just gonna remove that. To delete this task, action cannot be undone. Closing the span element. Click OK. And for the style, I want to make a danger style. And the icon, let's do something that makes them a stop. So look for a stop hand. There we go. So we can do either of this. For the icon, I'm gonna choose fa dash hand dash stop dash o. Now for the confirm label, in this case, I want my button to say delete. And for the cancel, well, it would just be cancel in this case. Now, if in the confirm dialog, if the user selects delete, then the actions that we're gonna add after will be executed, otherwise they won't execute. So then after having the confirmation, if you want to test it first, we can go ahead and save it and run that. and we're gonna do this button, and as you can see we get our confirm dialog. Are you sure you would like to delete this task? Action cannot be undone. If we select delete, then we're gonna do the next actions. Otherwise, the actions get cancelled. So let's create a new true action, and this one is where we're going to set the ID that will be marked for deletion. So we're gonna call it set ID to delete. For this, we're gonna do the action execute JavaScript code and open this code, and then first we're gonna save in a variable our triggering element. So let's do let task ID to delete equal, and then we're gonna do the following. We're gonna select the trigger element, dot data, which is making a reference to our data attribute, and then we're gonna select what data I want stored in this triggering element, which will be the button. And for that, in here inside this data, the argument we're gonna select will be this one right here, the one that we're using on our data attribute. The name we're gonna use is always the one that follows the data word, so be task ID. Just need to pay attention that this should be in quotes, single quotes, and then add the name. The format is camel case, which means everything in lowercase for the first word, and then uppercase and then lowercase. So task ID as the data attribute I selected. Then I'm just gonna do a console log here so we can see our value. Okay, so I'm gonna save this for now, just for us to see what is happening. Gonna do an inspect, so console, and then let's see if we get our ID for this task that I'm gonna select. So I'm gonna click on this, click delete, confirm, and there we go, we get our ID. To see if this is the correct ID, I'm just gonna put this column back up, and let's go ahead and click on the button, confirm the delete, and then we get this ID. This ID looks the same as this one, I believe. I'm gonna copy this so you can see it in here. And yeah, indeed is a matching string. So we know for sure we're getting the appropriate ID. So if I click on this one, for example, confirm the delete, then I get the corresponding ID to this row. Okay, so now that we have seen that it's working correctly, I'm gonna hide this column again. And on the execute JavaScript code that we were doing, we're gonna add one last piece, which will be to set that task ID, that ID for the row. We're going to store it in an Apex item that we're gonna use in the next action to actually delete from our table. So for that, we're gonna do apex.items and then we get an option to select which item we want to use. So in this case, we only have one, which is P1 task to delete item dot, and then we're gonna set the value to the variable we just created, which has the task ID, the row ID I want to delete. All right, so semicolon at the end, click OK, save that, and then the next action will be to delete the actual row. So for that, we're gonna do execute server-side code. In here, you can add the action that you actually want to do. For the name, we're gonna do delete row from table. And on the PL SQL code, we're gonna do a begin end. And then in here you can add the code that you would like. In this case, I'm just gonna do a delete. So delete from my task table, oops, where the ID is equal to the item that is storing, that is saving my my task ID. So there'll be P1 task to delete, semicolon, compile, and everything looks good. Okay, then on items to submit, don't forget to add the item task to delete, so select that, and then everything else looks all right. Then after we have deleted our task based on the ID, we want to refresh a report so we can actually see the changes. So after this execute server-side code, we're gonna do a refresh. So on action, select refresh. I'm just gonna call this refresh report. And affected elements will be the region. And in here, select your task, your classic report. Okay, so save those changes, and now we run the page. And let's say we want to delete this one, define project objectives, that has a status of completed and task priority immediate critical. So now that I click delete, just to show you what happens if I click cancel, nothing happens. So all the actions I have placed after this confirm dialog do not execute. Now if I click on it again and I do actually want to delete this row, click delete, then you can see right away that task I just selected has been removed. Let's try this one, plan functionality features, click delete button, delete confirmation, and there you go. Your row is getting deleted. You can use the same approach for the different actions you would like to give your user the chance to do. In this case, it was a delete from the table. And that's our tutorial for today on how to add a button to a classic report. We took a look at the button builder available in Universal Theme. We also took a look at how to create a virtual column in our classic reports, how to add our HTML expressions, how to create the dynamic action to delete a row from a table using a button in the classic report. Hope this video is helpful for you. I have left in the description the link to their resources that contains the completed application and also the base application in case you want to follow along with this video. If you have any other ideas or suggestions you would like me to create a video about, please leave it in the comments below, and I'll see you next time. Bye bye.